everyone, welcome to another video on the Revive Yarn channel. Today we are going to experiment a little bit with color and natural dyeing. I'm Elisabetta and I am the founder and director of this lovely community based in Dublin, Ireland. What is natural dyeing? This is a process by which we can bind colors to yarn, in particular natural colors, so any pigment that occurs in nature and can be extracted from a variety of sources such as plants, trees, lichens, mushrooms, insects even. The sources are infinite really. I was inspired to start this experiment by my recent reading of this book, Wild Color by Jenny Dean. This is an amazing book which can guide you through a lot of information that can get you up and running if you're a beginner like me to the world of dyeing from natural sources. It gives a fantastic and very interesting overview on what's the history of natural dyeing. Of course, it provides information about health and safety guidelines, and it has a lot of recipes coming from materials that you can quite easily find around you, depending on where you are based geographically. As you may know, if you follow us on social media, and you can find the links in the information box below, our community is able to repurpose yarn that comes from donations that we receive from the public. People would send us their leftovers of yarn, and our volunteers would use them to knit and crochet some garments which are then distributed for charity purposes. Among these donations of yarn, sometimes we would receive a specific color which is really challenging to be using for our project, and this color is white. Why is this color so problematic, you may be wondering? Well, our main purpose is to support people affected by homelessness, and in particular rough sleepers. A feedback that we have received is that colors that can resist or keep the dirt are more suitable because often it's problematic to replace an item, so people may be forced to hold on to an item for longer than they wish to, and of course an item which is white will not serve this purpose. So a request that we had received in the past was to donate items which were colorful or of darker colors. This means that we had to set up a series of guidelines which you can find on our website revivetheyarn.com. These guidelines give an indication to the people that support the project to which yarn is most suited to be donated and which one is not. So this gives some information about color, about quality, thickness of the yarn, and of course what kind of fibers can be used. Despite these guidelines, sometimes we would receive some yarn which is not compatible, and that's completely understandable. I actually have to say that probably 99% of our volunteers are really good in meeting the requirements that we have defined, and they understand the importance of these guidelines. So what do we do whenever we receive a white ball of yarn? First thing, of course, is that we would get in touch with other communities that are active locally who may be able to reuse this yarn. For example, groups knitting or making crochet blankets. White is perfectly usable because you can use it in color work as well as for making borders. An alternative for animal fibers is to change the color. So let's try to just make whatever white yarn into another colorful yarn so that we can use it for our own project. This is why today I'm going to become, sort of experimental dyer, because that's my first attempt in this process. And my idea is to create something really colorful, and I'm going to use something that is really easily available in your kitchen or in your grocery store, which are onion peels and turmeric powder. Onion peel should give, in theory, a color which can range from a dark brown yellow to a more pinkish brown. It of course depends whether you use red onions or yellow onions. It depends on the properties of the onion that you were basically using. There can be so many things that happen in between the process. For example, the pH of the water you're using, how long do you cook basically the yarn, if you use a mordant or not. For the purpose of this experiment, I'm not using mordants. First, because there are health and safety issues that are related to using chemicals, which I'm not ready to take at the moment, and also because I really want to have a fully natural process. So I'm really curious to see how the color will change. I have two different types of yarn. I have alpaca. This is a super bulky alpaca, which was actually taken from a designer's poncho and sweater that was unraveled and then put into hanks and skeins. I have several of these, and also I have several skeins of 100% wool. Yeah, I'm just not too sure what's gonna be the outcome of this experiment. I really hope it's not gonna be a failure. Definitely it's going to be a learning and fun experience. I think so. My expectation is that since the fibers are from different animals, they will absorb the pigments in a different way. And I'm really curious to see which of the two will absorb the least amount of pigment. And also I have no idea on how vibrant the color is going to be. So I know that turmeric could be either a very pale yellow or a bright yellow, like highlighter yellow, and the onion could be maybe a brownish color. I don't know. Well, I guess there's nothing left to do than going to the kitchen, where hopefully something magical is going to happen. So I hope you enjoy the next video, and let me know if you have any comments or suggestions in the comment box below. See you in a bit! It was a lovely day in Dublin, so I decided to do some filming outside in the back garden. I have my alpaca and the wool wound up in a few skeins and only one cake of wool. It took me ages to collect the onion peels, and so my advice for you is to check with your neighbors, the grocery store or your local markets whether they can give you onion peels for free. I'm definitely going to do this the next time. started with approximately 40 grams of onion peels and 3 teaspoons of turmeric powder. I then added a few more teaspoons of turmeric just because I thought that the color was not as vibrant as I wanted it to be. The process of preparing the dye bath was really relaxing and almost meditative for me. I enjoyed the sound of the water and the pleasant scent released by the turmeric and the onion peels. To avoid any lumps in your turmeric dye, I stirred the turmeric powder with a little bit of water before diluting the solution in the pot. As you could expect, the color is really intense. It's really mustardy yellow, and yeah, let's see how the yarn absorbs this color. I switched on the gas on high and I let the water come to a boil. Then I lowered the flame and kept it to a simmer for about 30-45 minutes. I also topped up the water if I noticed that the level was going too low. As you can see, I'm using very old pots, which I do not use for cooking. It is recommended that you use tools that you are not using for your ordinary cooking when you are dyeing yarn. The onion water changed color a lot, and it went from a light brown to a darker color, and also the turmeric went into a really bright yellow. To avoid any residues of the onion peel and turmeric, I just decided to strain the water. I just filtered the onion water through a colander. And then I transferred back the water into the original pot. Filtering the turmeric powder was really challenging. I tried to remove as much as possible of the one that was suspended in the water by using some towels. However, I noticed that this method actually captured a lot of the stain of the pigment on the tissues themselves, so I'm afraid this may have affected the final result. I will try to research for alternative methods of extracting the turmeric pigment, and if you have any advice, please leave a comment in the box below. Once I transferred the liquids back into their original pots, I placed the yarn in a basin with lukewarm water to prevent any shock in the temperature, and also to remove most of the air trapped in the fibers. I'm trying to not move the yarn too much, to not felt it. I'm just trying to press it and to cover it with the water. I'm going to use the yarn cake as is to check how the color will penetrate through it. So I'm just trying to squeeze out as much air as possible. The water was now more or less at the same temperature of the water contained in the basin. So I was okay to just put the yarn into my dye pots. And look at the color. Since my pots are relatively small, I could only add 2 skeins at a time, so I went for 1 wool and 1 alpaca in each of my pots. Initially, I was concerned that the color of the turmeric water didn't seem to stick much onto the yarn, so I thought that that would be the final result with the weakest color. However, half an hour later, you can see that the situation has changed, and now there is a beautiful yellow on the yarn, as well as an amazing shade of brown in the bigger pot with the onion water. At this stage I was ready to remove these skeins, and I repeated the same process. So I transferred back the yarn into the warm water in my grey basin to not shock the yarn. Look at that yellow, I'm just in love with it. For the second round, I noticed that there was not much pigment left in the turmeric water, so I decided to just dye with what was remaining of the onion water. Also notice how the alpaca yarn didn't absorb as much pigment as the wool. Interesting, right? Similarly, with the onion water, the alpaca somehow absorbed less color. As you can see, the water is much clearer than the first pass, but I'm still hopeful that some of the dye will be absorbed by the yarn. And I'm really curious to see how the dye will be able to penetrate the cake of yarn. And that's the final result. I completed the process with a warm soak in the Eucalan, which is my favorite to wash all my finished projects and as well my hand spun yarn. I soaked the yarns for at least 20 minutes, and I noticed that during the rinse, very few of the color actually leaked in the water. I'm really liking the color contrast of these yarns. These colors are so beautiful. The wool definitely got most of the pigment from both dyes. However, the alpaca took a lighter shade, but still really beautiful. The second batch, as I was expecting, has a less vibrant color, both for the onion and the turmeric, but I still like it a lot. I really hope you enjoyed this video. For any info about the project, visit revivedyarn.com or send me an email at revivedyarn@gmail.com. And don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next video.